Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Monday, December 30th, 2019. Well, it's our last show for 2019, and here are your top stories. We'll take a look at financial tips and tech trends for 2020. Well, let's welcome in Daniel Klein. He's the Senior Consumer Products and Technology Reporter with The Motley Fool. Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, and it's not normally Tech Tuesday. You're actually substituting this week for Devin Banerjee. Thanks so much for stepping up and doing that. Devin off on vacation, enjoying some time off, much needed rest. So thanks for joining us this morning.
Happy to step in.
So let's we have to do this. We're a financial and lifestyle network. We've got to talk a little bit about finance at the end of the year. I hate following the trends and the rules, but let's just jump right in. So what can you tell us about managing your finances at the end of 2019?
Well, I think it's very important to take stock and know where you stand. So the holidays are over. Maybe you still have a little bit of travel. Schools don't go back until somewhere between the 6th in Florida here. So, you might have a little bit of travel left. But what you want to do once the holiday spending is done is sit down and see where you are. Did you build up credit card debt? Did you come out ahead and maybe somebody gave you a really great gift and that offset some of your expenses? Did you not spend a lot of money? Where are you? Are you in good shape? And do you need to make adjustments? Where's your retirement savings? Are you sending a kid to college at some point? Have you planned for that? So sit down, look at all your accounts, look at your income, and figure out, hey, in the coming year, is my income going to change? Am I likely to change jobs or get a promotion or take on a side hustle or sell a kidney or who knows what it might be? Don't do that one. That is a bad idea. But realistically, you can't make a fix if you don't know where you are. After you look at where you are, if it's not great, forgive yourself because there is nothing you can do to correct past mistakes except make small gains going forward. So if you find that you're $20,000 in credit card debt and you're losing money every month, well, you can't cry over spilt milk. What you have to do is go, okay, how do I fix that in 2020? And it's very simple. You can either spend less, make more, or do some combination of the two. I would recommend a combination of the two. And we've always talked about this. Look at the low-hanging fruit first. And I am not a fan, and we've discussed this, of those articles that tell you, well, if you don't have a latte every day, you'll save. Well, that's true. But if a latte is very important to you, maybe eating lunch out isn't. Maybe you buy new sneakers 4 times a year instead of twice, and you could get away with making that change. So the first things you should do is look at those changes. And maybe it's very small stuff. Maybe you don't watch HBO since Game of Thrones ended, so you can get rid of HBO for a while. And you may find that when you do that, your cable company calls you and offers you 6 months free of HBO in exchange for still having you there. Yeah. So you want to make those little changes, but if the damage is deep, then you have to look at the bigger changes. Do you need to live someplace less expensive? Do you need to take in a roommate? Do you need to get another job? Do you need to really make a drastic, austerity lifestyle change? You want to figure out how to get where you're going. And where you're going isn't just surviving the week or the month, it's retirement, it's your future. So you might need to say, you know what, in 2020, I'm not taking a vacation. I'm not buying a new television. I'm focusing on paying down my credit card debt. And when it gets to zero, then I'll make a new plan. And you know what? It might take you more than a year to get to zero. And if that's the case, well, it might be time to think about a side hustle or doing some freelance work or all the other ways you could make money in addition to saving money.
Yeah, I think you bring up a couple great points. And I would say you're on the road. You want to be on the road to financial independence. One thing that I have learned this year doing the podcast, to interacting with people like yourself and experts literally around the world, is that talking about finance and is really hard for 98% of people, including myself. Having those conversations with people really hard. And it's a lot easier to stick your head in the ground. And everything that you outlined, Dan, is not rocket science. I mean, this is not hard stuff. You're not curing cancer. You're not, curing disease. This is not hard, but it really is hard for people to get their head out of the sand.
It's harder for families. And I think one of the things you have to do, even if you have relatively young kids, is if your lifestyle does not support your budget, you need to get the whole family involved in choices. So you could say, okay, I know we plan on going to Disney World this year, and we can still do that. But if we do that, here are the 10 things we're going to drop that we pay for now. Or you guys wanted all these streaming services. Well, if we're going to keep all those, we're going to get rid of cable. Or whatever those sacrifices and choices are, let them be a group effort, because you may find that you were very excited about the trip you were taking to the Grand Canyon, and your kids, frankly, would rather have Netflix and Disney Plus and 6 other streaming services because they weren't all that excited about the trip to the Grand Canyon or whatever it is. Or maybe they are willing to sacrifice to get to go see the new Star Wars land at Disney World or Disneyland. Whatever it is, it's easier to sacrifice when you have choices. When you're saying, okay, I'm giving this up so I can get that. And it's, of course, hard to make a young child understand I'm giving up a lot of things I like so my credit card balances could look better. So you want to try to balance it with some, a little bit of carrot and stick approach where they're sacrificing, but they're also getting things. It's also cheaper and easier to bribe kids the younger they are.
Yeah, and I think you bring up another great point, which is you don't want to punish yourself and say, I can't have this, because it's like dieting, right? And we've talked about it on the program and elsewhere. When you're trying to get in shape and you say, I'm not going to have carbs, or I'm not going to have pasta, or I'm not going to have this or that, you're bound to do it. It can only work for so long. So you got to have a balancing act. And, you have a family, I have a family. You've got to make sure that you have these conversations with your spouse, with your children, so that they understand. And most importantly, when you're talking with a family and talking with young children, what a great life lesson to instruct them on how to manage money, I would think.
I think it's important for kids especially to understand that for almost everyone, money is finite. So if we choose to live in a smaller home, that allows us to travel more. It's something we've talked a lot about in my house. I wanted to live downtown and was willing to sacrifice a lot of things in order to be walking distance to restaurants and nightlife and community events. So the size of our home was cut in absolute half from where we lived in Connecticut. And that hasn't always been great for my son, who liked having a big basement where he could shoot his Nerf guns and do all sorts of stuff. On the other hand, he also does live a half mile from a movie theater and lots of restaurants we like and lots of places we can go. So, of course, that was a choice that was made more for my benefit. But you also look at what making that choice did. Well, we got a lot of amenities, but we're paying less. So that allows us, I'm coming to you live from our other home in Davenport, Florida, which is near Disney World. And we have Disney World tickets and Universal tickets. And if I bought the $500,000 mini mansion on the golf course that I technically could afford, we wouldn't be able to afford all of those other things. So you have to give up some things to get other things.
Yeah, and the other thing I think it was great that you brought up is retirement. And you talk about choosing in life. It's what you have to do. We all have finite resources. There are finite resources that we all have. But when you think about retirement, many people may not look at their retirement statement. They may not look at their retirement balance. They may not reallocate to a different set of funds if things have changed for them. Really important. So and I want to kind of break this down, because we're not lecturing here. These are things that you and I both do, and others within our families and our friends do. Really important. And for people who haven't done it, there's no better time than now, as you said. You chunk it up, you break it down into little pieces, and you move forward. And you say, hey, we're going to look at our balances every quarter. We're going to look at our credit card statements every month. We're going to make little changes. And then what you do at the end of the year, or maybe mid-year, is you check in and you say, this is how far I've gotten.
Yeah, and you need to know where you stand. So if you're 20, if you're under 30, here's what you should do for retirement. Make sure you're saving a piece of each paycheck, 10% if you can, but 5% would be fine. Make sure you save enough that if your company offers a 401k match, that you're maxing that out, because that's absolutely free money. Because when you look at how compound interest works, every dollar you save when you're young is worth dramatically more when you get to retirement age than it is for the dollars you save when you're 50 or you're 60. If you're 40, 50, 60, well, then you have to really look and make some hard decisions. Do I have any retirement savings? If I don't, what could I reasonably amass? Because Social Security, while it will likely still be there, perhaps with some changes, is only going to replace a very small part of your income. So, maybe 20%, maybe less. So you have to figure out, am I going to leave New York and move to Arizona or Florida? Am I going to live in a more modest home? Am I going to get rid of 2 cars and only have 1? And really make those budgets and figure out those things. Do I want to have a home, but an RV where I travel the world? Well, not the world, just the country. Very hard to get overseas in an RV. But you have to know what you want and where you stand to get there. And even if you're someone, look, I'm a writer. I never intend to retire. I imagine I'll slow down, but I won't. Well, who would stop doing something that's enjoyable? I'll appear on podcasts. I'll retire until I'll write until they don't let me do it anymore. On the other hand, what you can't predict is health. That could be everything from you break your ankle hiking to, God forbid, you have some sort of, mental capacity decline. So even if you're someone who does something that doesn't really lend itself to retirement, you still want to plan for a rainy day, for what if everything goes wrong? And, look, we've all seen it with people who are really healthy, something bad happens and all their plans are thrown out of whack. So you want to think about it, talk about it, but compartmentalize it. You don't have to obsess about retirement. You don't have to look at your balances every day, but you should know roughly, where do I stand?
Excellent advice. And by the way, I talked it over with my wife, and we're moving into your house in Davenport or Orlando. Hope you're not allergic to 2 cats, because we're bringing Peaches and Sebastian.
We have 2 cats as well, though not at this particular home. So.
Well, Dan, thanks so much. I'm going to hold you over. When we come back, we're going to look forward into 2020 and talk to Dan about what we can expect from a technology perspective in this coming year. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Daniel Klein, Senior Technology Consumer Products Reporter from The Motley Fool. Dan, thanks so much for sticking around with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And you're actually doing double duty, because today's Monday, and normally you're on our Tech Tuesday, but Devin Banerjee out for a much needed and much deserved vacation. So thanks so much for sticking around. So we have had a wonderful year talking with you about technology, a lot of things, streaming services, cybersecurity. I mean, you name it, we have covered it. But Consumer Electronics is their annual events coming up this year. You're headed to CES. But what can you tell us is top of mind for you, the Motley Fool, and people in the technology industry for 2020?
So I cannot speak for the Motley Fool, but I will speak for my little piece of fooldom.
Okay.
And I will say that I've been to CES off and on since the 90s. And the last time I went a few years ago, everyone was showing home automation. And we've talked about this. Some of it is home automation that I consider kind of stupid. I don't need my refrigerator to tell me when my milk is bad. There's a really easy way to know if your milk is bad. Does it smell bad? Is it chunky? It's bad. On the other hand, I thought home automation was going to become a bigger thing, and we've seen it happen very slowly. I think the Ring doorbell, or that kind of video doorbell, has gained a foothold.
Yeah.
And the thermostats like Nest that you can check on your phone and really optimize so you're using the least energy possible but getting the desired result. You're starting to see that. And based on the absolute flood of email I have gotten from companies exhibiting at the Consumer Electronics Show, I think you're going to see plenty of ridiculous technology, automate your couch position, just stuff that you do not need. But I think this is the year where through Amazon, through Alexa, through Google Home, maybe through Apple, you're going to see some practical home automation happen on a more common basis. It might be as simple as having your lights optimized to turn on when you walk in, or being able to, crank up your toaster from your bed, whatever it is. It's going to be very simple things. But I do think this is the year where that stops being a novelty and starts being practical. And, some things just happen. Do you remember when having a robot vacuum was like crazy?
I was just gonna bring that up. We have an iRobot. I think that is amazing. That is amazing technology. We run it all the time. My wife, it saved our marriage.
I mean, I remember when my brother, who is since divorced but got married, got a Keurig, and like a Keurig was like, oh my God, you have this thing and it works this. Now Keurigs are $80. Like they're not, and frankly they stink. And I have an espresso, and I'm looking at it now. I have a Keurig drink maker where if you want to, close the show with a margarita, you put a pod in, and 30 seconds later you have a margarita, and it's really amazing. But something like the robot vacuum, which I too have a robot vacuum, has gone from something that only the rich had or real tech geeks to now there's a lot of choice. You can buy a $129 perfectly functional robot vacuum, admittedly an off-brand, to we're thinking about, do we want to get the one that's fully programmable so it doesn't keep getting stuck under our furniture, where you don't have to touch it, where every 30 days you can empty the thing, but it's self-emptying. With 2 cats, there's a lot of appeal to that.
Yeah.
And I think this is the year with CES that you're going to see some of that transition from this being something a geek like me would have, where, oh, look, I can make the lights turn colors in my living room or whatever on my phone, to this being very practical. And, my mother, who's turning 70 a little after we do this show,
Happy birthday,
might
Mom.
have a doorbell that she can see who's at her door when she's visiting me in Florida. That, I think, is going to be the story for 2020.
2 other areas I want you to cover. We have talked a number of times about healthcare, Teladoc, Fitbit, other Apple. They have created watches and other devices. I mean, do you expect to see those types of things under the category of wearables at CES?
Absolutely. So I'm wearing my Fitbit, and we've joked about this, but this is my 8th or 9th smartwatch I've tried this year. This is the Versa Lite, and I actually think it's the best of all of them. It's very lightweight, it's waterproof, it tracks steps and heart rate and sleep, and those are really the things I'm looking at. But I do think we're in a period, and it might start this year and really take a few years, where we're going to start to get aggregate health information like the research Apple is doing into heart conditions and stuff it can gather from tracking your blood pressure and your heart rate, to I think we're going to get more specific medical devices where, hey, you have this particular problem. We are measuring your blood sugar. We are measuring your low blood pressure. Your watch isn't telling you to get up and walk simply because you're supposed to walk every 2 hours. Your watch is telling you to get up and walk because you need a kickstart to get your blood pressure up. Your watch might tell you, you need some sugar, or you didn't get enough protein today. I think we're going to start to see a next generation level of practicalness, and that will probably start with athletes, where you'll get watches that tell runners they're dehydrated based on what's in their sweat. And I'm making that up. I don't know exactly where this is going to go.
Sounds feasible.
But you're going to start to get better stuff, because the idea of wearing a smartwatch has become very, very mainstream. I don't know too many people that don't have access to or have some version of a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or some other tracker that they can wear during the day. And I think, you're starting to see with Peloton and the other connected fitness sort of some personalized / group fitness. And I think that's only going to get better, and it's going to get more common that you go to the gym and you're getting a workout based on your body type and your actual body composition at that moment. And that's going to be good for all of us.
Yeah. And you last week you talked about smart toilets on the podcast. So I'm really excited about see what my flush has to say. We have about a minute left, Dan. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about streaming. That was a huge topic that we talked about. We just had The Mandalorian, last episode drop. We've seen Disney Plus, Apple. What can we expect to see possibly in 2020 and at CES?
So Disney Plus is a runaway success, and we're going to start getting some of the Marvel shows, new season of Star Wars Clone Wars. So they're going to continue their hype, and it would not shock me if in 2021 we are talking about Disney Plus numbers that rival Netflix numbers. And I know that's a lot. That's an astounding amount.
Yeah, that's a big number.
140 million or whatever it is. But I truly think they have the content to support that being there. What I think you're going to see is some failures. I think we can say that Apple so far has been a failure.
Yeah,
it's big entry. It's $300 million, whatever it is, series, the morning show. Nobody watches it. It's very blah. It doesn't matter how many big stars it has. It just seems like not event television. And so far, that's really been the trajectory for Amazon Prime. But the goal of Prime TV is just to be enticing to someone who's paying for Prime, whether they watch it or not. So it's a little bit different than what Apple's trying to do. And I'm not saying Apple can't break through, but it is very hard if you don't have a show that everyone is talking about, which is obviously very hard to do if you don't own the right intellectual property, to get people to want to navigate to your service. Now, we might see better aggregation where it becomes easier, like, through a Roku or somebody like that, to get to different content where it becomes a little more service agnostic and feels more like flipping around. But right now, I have to make a decision to turn on Amazon or Hulu, and that's harder. My Roku remote has a button for Netflix and Sling TV. It doesn't have a button for Amazon. So that's what we're going to see. I think we will see something big close. Apple might throw in the towel and say this didn't work.
After $300 million, that seems like a lot early to close.
Probably it is, but maybe they'll say, you know what? We have a bunch of shows in the pipeline. Let's license them to Netflix or Disney or whoever's out there. And will they make a season 2 of the morning show? I don't know if they've said they will, but paying Jennifer Aniston for a show that like a handful of people watch doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, it sounds like the key themes this year are streaming, home, and health. Dan, always a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for literally doing double duty this week, and appreciate talking with you as always. Wish you and your family a happy new year, and we will talk to you again next week.
Happy New Year. See you next week.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. In fact, it wraps up all of our live content for the Broadcast Retirement Network this year. But don't worry, we'll be back starting on January 2nd, January 3rd. We've got all new interviews, all new content for you. But remember, you can always check out the latest news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more by reviewing today's edition of the Morning Pulse. So until January 2nd, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired of the same